The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello and welcome back to Real Reviews. My name is Jamison Rabbitt, and I am so happy to be joined by my partner, my old friend. You know him, you love him. It's Steve Sabatke.
Hey.
Here we are.
I know. It's like a dream. I'm actually nervous.
It's been a while. It's been about 8 months since there was an episode of Real Reviews, The Farewell.
Is that how long it's been?
Wow. There's been some major life changes for both of us in the meantime.
Yes, there have. We could spend an hour talking about that.
Yeah, Steve and I both decided to have a very similar surgery. It took us out of commission for a few months, but here we are. We decided we have to come back. We have to do a retrospective on the year of 2024 in movies. It's one of our favorite things to do is talk movies, whether good, bad, talking about Oscars. So these are things that we love doing in our spare time, so why not put a camera in front of us and talk about it for you.
Yeah, and I thought 2024 was a pretty good year for films, even though I didn't see as many as I would have liked to. I still have a bunch of them on my bucket list of ones to see, but I was impressed by a bunch of the movies that I saw. And for me, this year, what really stood out were the performances by women.
Yeah, yes.
Unfortunately, Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress, it's 5 for each, and I think they could easily double that.
There's a few movies that I'll be talking about when we get to our best of list where there's lead actress performances that when I saw the movie said, well, this is going to definitely be a nomination. This is one of the best I've seen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's several of those, and
there's a number of them.
So, if you're a viewer of Real Reviews, normally this is a 30-minute program. We would talk about our best movies or our worst movies. We're doing both today. We're going to talk about 30 movies for you. Buckle up. Call Grandma. Tell her the show's on. They're talking about the good movies and the bad movies this week. I'm excited. So before I get into this, you said a lot of movies. I don't think that there was necessarily like the one or two huge movies like we've had in the past. Like last year, everyone was talking about Oppenheimer, Barbie.
Yeah,
you're right. Blah, blah. I feel like it was
maybe one
deeper year this year.
It was
of quality films.
More really good adult, not. But when I say adult films, people are going to snicker. But you know what I'm talking about.
No, there's going to be some on, I believe, both of our lists. I know I have one there that I remember saying it's really nice to just have an adult movie again in the theaters that sometimes isn't there. So this past year, I did a little look at how many movies I watched over the year. Letterboxd told me that in the calendar year of 2024, I watched 497 total films.
Oh wow!
That's not all new releases. That's total. 179 of which were 2024 movies. That means I watched 300 older movies too, which is. But as I said, I
don't even come close to
had
that.
a lot of spare time there for a few months to sit and watch movies all day and all night. There was a lot of films being watched, but which leads to some great movies and some really bad movies. And I think we should get started with what I dubbed our Dreadful Five.
Yes.
5 movies that we thought just didn't work for us. And I want you to lead this off with your 5th worst movie in your opinion this year.
Well, this was not so much a bad movie as it was very disappointing to me, and you may be surprised by this, but it's Saturday Night, which was about the night of the 1975 premiere of the show, which later on became to be known as Saturday Night Live.
I've heard of that, yeah.
And I felt like I was actually watching an episode of Saturday Night Live. It was really cartoonish to me, and it was difficult to keep track of who was who and what was going on, and it really didn't tell me anything about how this show got started. I mean, I really wanted to see a movie that got into the weeds about the origin of this show.
As opposed to the on-set drama?
Yeah, and this didn't do it. I mean, it's not a bad film. It's just, to me, it was extremely disappointing.
I can agree with you on points. I was very excited for this film we were both big.
And I was too.
Big Saturday Night Live
I watched
fans.
the show.
And I was very excited for it. I remember coming out of the movie thinking that I wasn't impressed by most of the performances in there, and that I know it's hard because you don't want people doing a caricature of Chevy Chase or whatever. But I felt like too many of the people didn't look anything or feel anything like their characters, which led to, I noticed, especially with the female characters on the cast, everyone had to say the other character's name constantly. That's right, Jane Curtin. Hey, Gilda. Constantly to remind you as an audience, oh, yeah, that's right. That's supposed to be Lorraine Newman. Got it. Really, the one I really enjoyed was the actor who played Dan Aykroyd. I thought he was the one who kind of encapsulated.
That was good.
As opposed to just trying to do a weird impression of somebody. But yeah, I was disappointed. I thought it was good-ish, but yeah, it left a lot to be desired. I would agree with you. My number 5 is a movie based on a children's book. It came out in August. It is Harold and the Purple Crayon from director Carlos Saldana. Stars Zachary Levi as Harold. It's based on a beloved children's book about young Harold and his magical purple crayon, which he uses to create a better world. And what would happen if Harold grows up and left the pages for the real world? This is a question that I don't think anyone who's ever read the book asked. Like, what happens if Harold grows up, becomes an adult, leaves the pages in search of the narrator who talks about the story? The problem is there's no story here. It's a badly told fish out of water story of Harold, a child in an adult's body who leaves and all of a sudden is not on the pages of this children's book. He's in the real world. There's also some bad guys, one played by Jermaine Clement.
Well, of course there's bad guys.
Chasing after him because they want that purple crayon.
That's right.
And, and the hero isn't too bright because it's a grown man in a child's body. And I feel like Zachary Levi is really going after that market between Shazam and this of I'm going to play a large man with a child's brain. Not the career arc that I would choose. And unfortunately, I feel like that's a market that Will Ferrell cornered a long time ago of like being just kind of empty-headed character. And yeah, it's rough. And so even like Jermaine Clement and Lil Rel Howery, who I enjoy as comedic characters, can't save this abomination. And it felt like it was a script that was written in crayon. And I, myself and my child, did not enjoy this movie at all.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, you don't need to.
No,
You're fine.
All right.
So that's my number 5. Your 4th worst movie of the year.
Well, this was not 2024 was a good year for Netflix, and it was an awful year for Netflix. And one reason why is Spaceman, which is you and I talked about it on a past show, a very slow-moving slog of a snoozer about an astronaut played by Adam Sandler, who's on a mission to the edge of the solar system, and he encounters a creature that tries to help him resolve his problems back on Earth with his wife, played by Carey Mulligan. The creature looks like a big spider-like beanie baby. What did the creature eat all the time? He loved what, peanut butter or jelly or something?
I blocked out a lot of this movie.
Yeah, there was a lot of focus on that. I mean, this is not your typical Adam Sandler movie. I mean, I like Adam Sandler when he does dramatic roles, but this was just boring.
Very boring.
It did help with my insomnia on the day that I saw it. It's awful.
This is another one, though, that I was kind of intrigued by when it was first announced. Like, okay, I like him as serious roles. This was just not it for me either. Yeah, that's a good choice. My number 4 is also a Netflix movie. Netflix partnered with another famous comedian, much like Adam Sandler, only this is a partnership with Jerry Seinfeld, who wrote and directed Unfrosted. How did Pop-Tarts come to be? Well, who cares? Huge cast of comedic actors, all being wasted in a terribly dull movie. Had the feel of a comedy brought by an out-of-touch comedian who thinks he's smarter than the audience. And after a few minutes of watching usually funny people deliver really dull dialogue, I lost interest quickly. And it's just a saggy bowl of cornflakes when I was promised something sweet and fruity. And I don't know how Jerry Seinfeld was able to remove Jim Gaffigan's funny bone, but he wasn't great.
He did.
Yeah, he did. It's a 4-minute Saturday Night Live sketch that stretched into feature length, and it didn't work. And it was, I really hated this movie as I was watching it.
I'll have more to say about it.
I'm sure you will. That's my number 4. Your number 3 dreadful movie.
Yeah, it's another one from Netflix. It's Mother of the Bride. It's a horrible excuse for a remake of Father of the Bride, starring Brooke Shields as the mother. I mean, I like Brooke Shields, and she does have comedic chops. We've seen it on other movies and TV shows.
Sure.
I mean, but she should have known better than to sign up for this stinker. I mean, it's boring, it's predictable, you know what's going to happen, you know who's going to end up with who.
I made it halfway through that movie and said,
Did you? You couldn't finish it?
I don't need to finish this movie.
Yeah, it's bad.
That's good. I'm sticking with Netflix for my number 3 least favorite movie of the year. It is a January 2024 Netflix original from director F. Gary Gray. It's Lift, starring Kevin Hart. F. Gary Gray, a director who makes fun
A bad
action
movie
movies.
with Kevin Hart?
Yeah,
no.
who knew, right? Another bad Netflix action flick, which they seem to really love making terrible action movies. Just another example of Kevin Hart not being able to carry a movie. It tries to be a James Bond-style globe-trotting heist film with gadgets and huge locales and a team full of, like an Ocean's 11 type team full of safecrackers, but they're all really boring actors and characters. There's familiar trappings that expose really bad writing in this movie, and it's already dated in 2024 because the opening heist, the heist that sets up the entire movie, is they're going to steal an NFT. It's
Okay.
and then those are already a dated thing. Like when
All right.
non-fungible
That
tokens
sounds exciting.
were hot, and it's just Kevin Hart plays a guy who's so charismatic that even an Interpol agent will want to work with him against their best interests. It's just a poor copy of real art. It's motel wall art of a movie, and Kevin Hart is just not believable in this movie, and I really despise this flick.
I have not seen this one.
Nope, no need.
So
Top 2, your number 2 least favorite movie, sir.
that's another winner from Netflix, Beverly Hills Cop Axel F.
This surprises me.
Really? Yeah. It surprised me because it's time to kill this franchise once and for all. Let's end it. I mean, the sequel to the superior original, which came out in 1984, have been getting progressively worse. Mm-hmm. And then they hit the bottom of the barrel with this one. There's no memorable moments. It's not funny. Eddie Murphy is not funny. This was a big paycheck for him. I mean, even having Judge Reinhold and the late John Ashton and Bronson Pinchot and Paul Reiser in the movie.
They brought the whole gang back.
Brought everybody back. It didn't help. It was the plot was just boring. It was not exciting. It just did not do justice to the. And I love the first movie.
Oh, it's impeccable.
It's a classic, and it's just. Let's end this now.
See, I kind of enjoyed this movie.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. Part of it is because I rewatched the entire series leading up to this, and really despise. I mean, the third one is unwatchable.
Yeah, the third one's awful.
It's terrible. And so I found this one like, okay, this is better than where we left off. I want to root for Eddie Murphy in the worst way because
I do too.
I love the guy, and his career has just.
But he made one before
spiral.
this, about a Christmas movie before this, which I think was on my
Candy
worst
Cane
of
Lane?
list last year.
Yeah.
Or in 2023.
Yeah.
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 We need something better from him.
I want better things
I like
for him.
Eddie Murphy.
Speaking of comedic actors that I really like and who provided something I didn't, my number 2 is a Paramount Plus film from director Bobby Farrelly starring Jack Black. It's Dear Santa. I love Jack Black. This should be fun with Jack Black in it as Santa, but he's not Santa also. He's actually Satan, despite what the poster art might tell you. It's shockingly bad. There's probably a very funny movie buried in here, but just by having Jack Black in it, but it's buried under some awful schlock. He plays Satan, who arrives to a dyslexic boy who sends a letter he thinks to Santa, but he's dyslexic, so he sends it to Satan, who shows up in his closet. This young boy, Liam, played by Robert Timothy Smith, is a loser, a point that is pounded home throughout the movie repeatedly. Even in the eyes of his parents, they think he's a loser because he's a fat dyslexic kid, which justifies everyone in his life, including his teachers and everyone, just bullying him endlessly. His parents hate each other and seem to regret having a child, especially one with social and emotional issues. They mock and dismiss him, even as he comes to them and says, "Satan is talking to me in my room."
This is
and they're like,
awful.
"Shut up, fat kid." He's bullied by everyone, and it's also, the film is also, it's barely a movie, so it's padded out by having a Post Malone concert in the middle of it. He becomes a part of the movie, and then we just have to show him in a concert. And it's just got awful messaging. And as much as I love Jack Black, this is supposed to be like a family Christmas movie, but it is not good. And my wife and I were excited to watch this. Like, oh, this looks like fun, Christmas movie with Jack Black. And we got done. She's like, that was terrible, right? Like, yeah, it was really, really bad. This will not be joining the canon of Christmas classics.
So I hear you saying this is not destined to become a Christmas classic.
Yes.
That will be revisited
This will
each
not
year.
be one of those that makes the rotation every year.
Okay.
No.
All right.
That's my number 2. Your number 1.
All right. Well, my number
favorite.
1 you already mentioned, but and there's not much I can add to it other than Unfrosted is unfunny. It's stupid. Why Jerry Seinfeld made this is beyond comprehension. My respect level for him got knocked down a few notches. I mean, also another unfunny performance from Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah.
Just completely without humor, what she did in the movie. Eat a bowl of bran. You'll get more out of it.
I mean, if you just look at the cast, you're like, wow, these are people I really enjoy. There's a lot of really funny
And I don't even
people.
know, is this even the true story of how Pop-Tarts got
I think
invented?
it's apocryphal. Because afterwards I started reading more about it. It's like, well, that wasn't true. And this, of course, this wasn't real. And there's not a town like this. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've eaten any since then. Since
You
watching
rejected
this.
them. Well, it's
I
probably
did.
right, too.
Yeah.
Based on circumstances in life. Like,
Yeah. There's other
Pop-Tarts
reasons.
For multiple reasons. My number 1 least favorite movie of the year, it's tough. It was Dakota Johnson's Madam Web. I mean, I feel bad piling on it because this movie got dumped on, but it earned it all. It's the single worst performance of the year from Dakota Johnson. I mean, she is sleepwalking through this movie. She seems so disinterested in this film. Her boredom just exudes off the screen. It made laughably bad dialogue even worse. It feels like this movie was edited with a chainsaw. There's huge logic leaps throughout. Nothing really happens in this movie. It made me, when I reviewed this movie earlier in the year, it made me publicly apologize to Morbius for being so hateful towards that because it was better than this one as far as bad Marvel villain movies go. It felt like it was written by a bunch of people who had never read a comic book or seen a comic book movie and just like, yeah, we'll make this up. And her interactions, there was a young trio led by Sydney Sweeney, who were supposed to be in the trailers, made it look like there's a bunch of scenes with them doing things.
Yeah.
That was all just in the trailers. Never actually really happened in the movie.
Really?
Until like the last 6 minutes of the movie.
Okay.
And her interactions with them were so cringy. And there's massive, massive comedic logic leaps in here. And there's also a really, really bad villain in this movie whose dialogue is all ADR'd because he's wearing a mask, and the ADR is so bad. It's so bad. And so, yeah.
Wow.
In a movie with, in a year of really bad movies, this stands up head and shoulders above the rest as my least favorite film of 2024.
Okay. I will avoid that.
There were a lot of bad ones, though. A lot of bad ones this
Yeah.
year. Now, get the bad ones out of the way. We did see a bunch of movies that we did enjoy.
Yes, we did.
And I actually struggled to narrow down a 10 to
Well,
hone it down.
I haven't seen as much as you have, but I struggled as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I've got some on my honorable mention
Absolutely. I
list, which if
can't
we
wait
have
to-
time, we can get to it. But
We will make sure we have time
Okay,
to talk
all right.
about honorable mentions because I have some as well. But let's go ahead and dig right into our top 10 favorite movies of 2024. Movies that we think you need to go out and find and check out as soon as you can. What do we have at number 10 for you?
number 10 for me is a documentary, and it's on Disney Plus, and it's Beatles 64. And this one chronicles the impact that the Beatles had on American culture when they visited the U.S. for 3 weeks for the first time in February of 64. And by the way, I turned 6 years old that month.
Wow, happy birthday.
Yeah. And this visit included their historic first performance on the Ed Sullivan Show, which I think I saw when I was a little kid. I can't remember, but
I've never known anyone as old as you.
So this film features digitally restored footage shot by Albert and David Maisels, who are big documentarians. They did it for this is footage that was shot for a 1964 documentary called What's Happening, the Beatles in the USA. I didn't even know about that. Includes new interviews with Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr, along with some others who were impacted in some way by the visit. The interviews with McCartney and Starr don't really offer anything new, but I'm glad they were part of this film. Gives them more credibility. But what really fascinated me, though, was the footage of the band and what was happening around them and while they were there and their reactions to what was happening around them. This was all new stuff to me, and it was like watching the movie Hard Day's Night, which is one of my all-time favorites. Mm-hmm. The difference being this was real.
Sure.
And the film really shows the distinct personalities of each of the Beatles. And what was amazing is what you get from them in the documentary is pretty much the same as what you saw from them in Hard Day's Night.
Sure, okay.
I mean, there really wasn't a lot of difference as far as personalities. And I know a few years ago, I think you had the Beatles documentary Get Back on your best of list.
Yeah.
I didn't. I thought it was a bit too long. It was
It was very long.
On the tedious side, but this one to me is much better. My favorite time for the Beatles is their early years, and of course the music is great. So if you're a Beatles fan and you haven't checked this one out yet, check it out. It's good.
How about the annual tradition now of every Thanksgiving weekend we get a Beatles documentary?
Yeah, I don't know if we've run dry on that stuff or if there's
just keep
more to
digging
come.
More up.
I was surprised.
I didn't know that the Maisel brothers shot this. I mean, they're legends in the documentary space.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. My number 10 is also a documentary, coincidentally. It's one, I believe it's on Netflix. It's called Daughters.
Yes, it is. It's on
Filmmakers
Netflix.
Angela Patton and Natalie Ray. Documentary about fathers who are incarcerated and this unique father-daughter dance that's being held for D.C. area black girls whose fathers are in prison. And we see how an opportunity for physical interaction with their daughters offers so much hope and joy to these prisoners. And we get to know both the daughters and the men in prison and their circumstances, and each one of them is very individual, very different in why they're there, their relationship with their daughters, how their daughters see them, the pain that's involved in this in the families, and how different daughters react to their dads differently. And there's this build up to this father-daughter dance, and the men have to go through all these steps to be able to finally get there. And even when they have visitations, it's a no touching rule. So this is the first time that they're able to hug their daughters. And this is a big moment. And it really was a beautiful film, and how these men identify the damage that their actions have caused their daughters. And the question kind of is presented like, is this incentive enough for these men to change their ways, to change their outlook on life, and will this give them the hope that a phone call doesn't give them? As a father, this film just wrecked me. As a father of a daughter, this film tore me apart as you see the pain in these daughters' faces, the love, the forgiveness that some of them are able to give, some of them aren't able to give forgiveness. And there's just so much going on, and there's sweetness and there's pain, and men being vulnerable. And I was kind of a mess by the end of this movie. It's a great documentary. Over on Netflix.
Yeah, it's on my list. I mean, you have a daughter, I have a daughter.
Yeah.
I probably
you will be a blubbering mess.
Once I see it, I will probably.
We're not in prison, but we are men with daughters and have hearts.
So I do want to watch it.
Yeah, I highly recommend that. So that's my number 10, Daughters.
Okay.
Going to your number 8 or number 9, sir.
Number 9. Well, not everything on Netflix was horrible. You heard about Daughters. This one caught me completely off guard, and it's Emilia Perez. Now, if you would have told me ahead of time that I would enjoy a crime thriller about a Mexican cartel leader who's transitioning into a woman, and then on top of that, it's a musical, I would have had a lot of doubt about that. But this by far was the most original and creative movie I saw last year. I have never seen anything like this before. I mean, the story was compelling. It wasn't boring. I liked the music. I thought that the musical segments would be awkward and cringy. They were not. But what really carried this film were the 3 lead actors. Zoe Saldana as the lawyer who helps Emilia Perez, which was the cartel kingpin. Carla Sofia Gasson, who plays Emilia Perez, and Selena Gomez. She's great.
Yeah.
She plays the cartel leader's wife. This movie's been getting a lot of praise. It's also been getting a lot of backlash.
Yep.
We could probably spend a whole show talking about that. And I'm going to admit, initially I was reluctant to see this. I thought, But then the more I read about it and the more praise it got, I said, okay, I got to watch it. And I saw it not too long ago, and I just absolutely loved it.
Yeah, this is one that kind of flew under the radar until Golden Globe nominations. I was like, Amelia Perez getting nominated for all these awards? Interesting. I'll have to watch it. And
you haven't seen it?
No, I did.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, it was at that point. I was like, okay, I have to watch this movie. Yeah, it's an idea that I've never thought of before and I've never seen before. And I like that. I like original ideas and taking a chance. Because, yeah, it shouldn't work. Like,
no, it shouldn't.
Especially the musical element of that should not work like it did. And Zoe Saldana I thought was phenomenal.
Oh, she's so good. She'll be nominated.
Yeah, she had to do a lot with that.
Yeah.
My number 9 is my favorite animated movie about a robot this year.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
I don't think you do. It's Robot Dreams. You thought Wild Robot,
Yeah,
huh?
I did.
I love Wild Robot.
I've heard of this. I haven't
Wild
seen
Robot
it.
is in my top 20, but Robot Dreams is actually one that I loved more from filmmaker Pablo Berger. It's a beautiful, sweet film, no dialogue in it at all. It's animated in a style reminiscent of my childhood, nice, simple animation. It's about a dog named Dog who orders a friend, a robot named Robot. This is set in 1980s New York. Dog is lonely. He orders this robot to be his pal, and these two become instant companions, enjoying life, bringing joy to each other, seeing the best in the world, and it's montage after montage of them just doing things as best friends out in the world, and it's the sweetest thing. And their friendship is something that we should all crave in life. I mean, it's great. They look at the world with such joy together, no judgment. They're having fun until about midway through the movie. They're out on the boardwalk. They go swimming. They lay down to dry off in the sand. Well, what happens when a robot goes swimming?
Oh, please.
The robot cannot get up. Rust sets in. And so a large chunk of the movie then is this robot being stuck on the beach as Dog cannot get him. And the pain and the heartache.
I'm going to start crying already.
Oh, my God.
I haven't
and
even seen it.
This loneliness that sets in for both of them as the world completely changes for them. This movie affected me so much. No dialogue.
It's affecting me.
A dialogueless robot-dog friendship movie. I love this movie. Wild Robot, another movie that I saw in theaters, loved that too. That one really affected me. Again, as a father who has children who have gone off, left the home, that's kind of a big element to that movie. That hit me, but this Robot Dreams is the one that really, really got me. And I feel like it's not being talked about enough. It hasn't been nominated for any of the animated awards.
No, it hasn't.
Yeah.
Which is strange.
But I love it.
Because there's another animated film that has no dialogue called Flow.
Right.
Which I think won the Golden Globe.
I believe it did, yes.
Yeah. Did your daughter like this?
She did not watch this with me.
Well, she
This
didn't,
was a Netflix
because usually
movie.
you guys watch them together.
Yeah, this was one that I watched while I was sitting home recuperating and really loved. So that's my number 9, Robot Dreams.
All right.
What do you have next for us, sir?
Number 8. It's one that came out earlier this year called The Bike Riders, and I think you can see it now on Prime.
I think so, yeah.
This is about the lives of certain members of the Vandals Motorcycle Club, which is a fictional version of the real Outlaws Motorcycle Club, starring Tom Hardy, Austin Butler, and Jodie Comer. And what I really loved about this film is its authenticity. It's gritty, it's grimy, it's dirty, it's rough. You know, it reminded me of those independent films that we started to see in the late 60s and early 70s, like Easy Rider and Five Easy Pieces, those types. And it had that look and feel to it. And most of this movie takes place in the mid to late 60s, and I was really amazed at how the filmmakers recreated the look of those times. I mean, you really felt like you were being transformed into that time period. And I love the music. I wish they would have released the soundtrack on CD. They didn't. I mean, if anybody watching the film, watching us, is associated with the Bike Riders,
You know they are.
come on. Put it out on CD. I think they did a record version of it. I don't have a record player. But what really makes this film so special is the cast, which also includes the always dependable Michael Shannon.
Oh, man.
Love Michael Shannon.
He'll come in and steal a scene
no matter
in any
what
movie.
he does, yeah. But it was Hardy, Butler, and especially Jodie Comer.
Yes. It's her story.
It is, and Butler has that Brando quality going on with this. Comer is very underrated. We need to see more of her. Tom Hardy, he's one of those chameleon-like actors. You never know what you're going to get from him when he's in a movie. It's different every time. This one, unfortunately, is getting, I mean, you talked about Robot Dreams. This one's getting ignored by the various awards that are coming out now. I don't know if it's because it came out early.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to get ignored by the Oscars.
Butler is, Hollywood sweetheart Austin Butler.
And Jodie Comer, I think, needs to be nominated. She won't.
Yeah, I agree. Like, Tom Hardy's one of my favorite actors just because he makes choices in every movie. And
he does.
And they're always interesting. And so at the beginning of the year, this was one of my most anticipated movies because of the cast. And just like, I'll watch anything with Tom Hardy in it. And he's great. And I did not expect, I got blindsided by how good Jodie Comer was in this movie.
Yes.
And she has to carry the emotional weight of this movie. And she does it really well set against a very macho cast. And she stands her own in that movie. It's really good. Yeah, I like that you're representing that movie because, I don't feel like it got talked about enough when it came out and then just kind of disappeared.
Yep.
So, my number 8 favorite movie of the year is Alien Romulus from director Fede Alvarez.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
I know. I
wasn't expecting that.
Very skeptical when this movie was announced. I was quietly hopeful. Alien franchise, a franchise I really love, but there's a dichotomy between the good ones and the bad ones. And there is a large gap between good Alien movies and awful Alien movies. And so I was quietly hopeful, but I don't know. And what I got was one of my favorite films of the year. Had me on edge the entire movie. Great tension. Ties really well into the original Alien movie. Some might say that it apes the original Alien movie a little too much. I'm okay with that. There's a lot of... part of, I think, looking back on it too, one of the things that really maybe boosted it, in my personal opinion, was this was the first film I had post-surgery when I had been unable to go to a movie theater in a month. And I finally was able to get to a theater. And
this was the first one?
This was the first test of my heart.
Okay.
Let's go see some tension. But Kaylee Spaney as Rain, who is kind of our Ripley surrogate, she's great. It didn't feel like she was rehashing familiar ground. I was fully invested in this movie, every frame.
Oh.
I love a good space horror with a team of characters. I cared about these people. Some terrific-looking xenomorphs. And just a really smartly written story. But it's at its best, kind of like we were just saying about Bike Riders, at its best when Rain is the center of the story, when it's the female protagonist against the aliens. And I really enjoyed that. They also bring back some original characters from the first Alien movie. Now we're talking 45 years ago.
Okay.
Bring back some people who are brought back from the dead, I guess. But some people might call it a little bit of too much fan service, but for me, I think it was beautiful, and it got me. It got me back into loving these Alien movies. So it slotted in as my 8th favorite movie of the year.
All right, not for me.
Not
I saw
for
the
you.
first one, and I said, that's it.
Oh, yeah, this is very similar. Yep. All right, we move to our number 7.
Number 7, it's Wicked. I had 0 expectations going into this. Didn't see the stage musical, knew little about the story. I thought, okay, it's associated with The Wizard of Oz. I knew that much. Kind of familiar with one of the songs, but I was blown away by this. I really was. Is it one of the best musicals I've seen? No, but I really enjoyed it, and I think it deserves a Best Picture nomination. The cast is great. Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba is fantastic. There's an actress by the name of Marissa Bodie who plays Elphaba's disabled sister, Nessa Rose. She is from Mazomanie.
Oh, wow.
Did you know that?
I did not.
Okay. Yeah, she's really good. But the performance that stood out for me that I was not expecting at all, Ariana Grande. Mm-hmm. And I'm not an Ariana Grande fan.
You're not?
No. And I wasn't expecting much from her, but she stole the show. She was fantastic. I was just shocked at how good she was in this film. What's the downside to all this? It's a 2-part movie.
Of course. I think that might be part of the reason why it's not getting the nominations that you would think.
I hate that, and I've talked about that before on other past episodes that we've done. I mean, I got to wait now until November of next year to see the second part.
Yeah.
And I think they already filmed it.
I believe so, yeah.
Show us this now.
You're so impatient. Hey, some of us haven't seen the first one yet.
Shame on you.
This is my great shame.
Shame on you.
What did I say? 497 movies I watched.
Out of all the movies you haven't seen, this is the one.
It was a very active December for me. This white beard was doing some work.
Yeah.
And somehow this just kept slipping because of the runtime. Kept slipping between the cracks. I don't have that much time to watch the movie. Blah blah blah. And then here we are. We're getting ready for this show, and I'm like, I haven't seen one of the biggest movies of the year. One of the not only the biggest like, box office wise, but people talking about pop culture wise, and it still is sitting out there as like that one that I have shamed.
I think it's still in the theaters.
I might have to go rectify it this weekend.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot out at the moment, unfortunately.
No.
I might have to go check it out. Yeah, I love that you love it though. That's great.
Yeah.
It's a good recommendation. My number 7 is a movie that I just watched fairly recently as we wrapped up the year. It is a film from director Aaron Schimberg. It is A Different Man. Stars Sebastian Stan as Edward. It's like an extended episode of The Twilight Zone, which is my favorite television show of all time. Edward is an insecure actor with massive facial disfigurations who meets a new neighbor who moves into his apartment complex. Ingrid, played by the great Renate Reinsve, who we loved in Worst Person in the World.
Oh, yeah, okay.
She is a new neighbor.
Yep.
And Edward falls for her, but he's got this massive, disfiguration to his face. Mm-hmm. He discovers an opportunity to have the face that he wants, to get the girl, get the career, everything that he wants. But what happens when the dream role comes that requires a man with facial disfiguration? It's like it's a Twilight Zone episode. Oh, you want that? Well, what about now the career role requires you to have a facial disfiguration? That's when a man named Oswald, played by actor Adam Pearson, who does have this disfiguration in real life, shows up. Oswald is everything that Edward wasn't. He is secure. People love him. He's talented. They see through his looks to the inside of him. And this just enrages Edward with jealousy that he couldn't have that when he had that face. And Sebastian Stan is great in this movie. He literally and figuratively transforms through this movie. And he becomes more and more monstrous internally as the movie goes along. And it almost feels like a Christian Bale in American Psycho type of transformation. You're like, this guy is scary. It's a dark satire. And it really kind of asks you to look inside yourself a lot in this film. And I think I saw a few movies with Sebastian Stan this year. I liked him in everything. But this one really stood out to me as by far his best performance. And a movie that going in I wasn't expecting to love as much as I did. But A Different Man is well worth finding.
It's on my list.
All right.
It's on my list.
Good.
I need to see it.
All right. Number 6, what do you have for us?
It's on Disney Plus, and it's called Young Woman and the Sea, and it stars Daisy Ridley as Gertrude Ederle, who's a competitive swimmer from America who became the first woman to swim across the English Channel in 1926. Now, I love biopics about historical figures that I know nothing about. I didn't know anything about Trudy Ederle, who she set the world record for crossing the channel at 14 hours and 31 minutes, beating the world record held by a man by 2 hours. This reminded me of those biographical movies that are from the 40s and the 50s. It's like an old-fashioned sports movie that proves they can still make them like they used to. It reminded me of one that came out a year or two ago called The Boys in the Boat.
Yes.
Directed by George Clooney,
Yep.
Which I really liked. And I mean, even though I didn't know the character, you know how it's going to end.
Sure.
I mean, but you're still cheering for it. There's a lot of compelling dramatic tension to this. The swimming scenes look great. And can I say, can we see more of Daisy Ridley?
Yeah.
I mean, not just in the Star Wars movies. She's great in those, but we need to see her in more lead roles. She does have, I looked it up, she does have a new British action film coming out next month.
Okay.
Whether or not it'll come here, I don't know, but it's called Cleaner.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to seeing that. Yeah. This is one of those under-the-radar movies. It's kind of buried at Disney Plus right now. I had to
actually search it.
Enter the letters to search for it, but it is worth your time.
Disney should make these inspiring sports films once a year. Because this is a good one. And yeah, it is. It's not even on their main screen.
No, it's not.
I was scrolling and scrolling. It's not even listed. You got to actually look it up. That's a good one. My number 6 is a small indie film called Good One from director India Donaldson. It's a film that I saw at the Wisconsin Film Festival this past year. Fell in love with it. And it's just not out there in the world for no one's talking about it, but I loved it. Stars Lilia Kalias as Sam. It's a film that affected me and hung with me and just kind of hit me hard all year long. It's a simple story of a father taking his teenage daughter on a weekend hiking trip, hoping to bond with her. The father, Chris, played by James LaGrosse. His old friend, Matt, played by Dean McCarthy, tags along. He's kind of an emotional mess dealing with divorce and a kid who didn't want to come with him on the trip. So the three of them go along. It seems so serene as they're out in the woods camping, just kind of quiet moments until something quietly unnerving happens on their trip. And I'm not going to ruin it for you, but there's long, awkward moments of a father unsure of how to talk to his teenage daughter. The father who really just wants it all to be like the old days, and of course that could never happen. And Sam quietly going on this journey as his teenage daughter who had something terrible happen to her. And Lily Kalias, this is the first thing I've seen her in, and she has the maturity and presence at 17 years old to carry this really a three-hander movie, and she carries the entire emotional weight of this movie. And it reminded me of when I saw the great film Leave No Trace a few years back with Ben Foster and a young Thomasin McKenzie, where I was like, that girl is going to be something. And that's how I felt watching this movie. It's a kind of a tough watch in moments. It'll make you, as you see something about to happen, you're like, please don't let this movie go where I think it is. But it's great, and I feel like it should be out there a little more in the world for people to find. So Good One is my number 6.
Got to watch it.
All right, top 5 time, sir. What do we have?
Number 5 for me is Will and Harper. It's from Netflix. It was the best documentary of 2024 for me. It's about the friendship between actor Will Ferrell and writer Harper Steele. They became close friends while Ferrell was on Saturday Night Live, and Steele was a writer for the show back in the 90s. They decided to rekindle their friendship and reconnect by taking a 17-day trip across the country. And the so-called, for lack of a better word, plot twist in the story is that Steele completed a gender transition, and now you see firsthand how Will Ferrell is trying to reconcile his feelings towards that, how to accept that change, how do I act with this person, are we still going to be good friends? And this film is very real, it's honest. I mean, you're going to see a side of Will Ferrell that you've never seen before. There are funny moments, especially in scenes where people don't recognize Ferrell, they don't know who he is. But sometimes it's tough to watch. I mean, there's a scene where they go to a steakhouse in Texas. Ferrell dresses up like Sherlock Holmes to be funny. He wants to be the goofy comedian. And there's some unintentional consequences that happen after that, where there's some really nasty social media comments about Steele and his trans identity that come out. And you can just see the horror on Will Ferrell's face.
Let's do some soul searching
when he's looking at those comments and like, what did I just do? But this movie is also a portrait of America that gives you some hope and reassurance that there are areas of the country where you don't see that, where there is no division, there is no hate. And I love this movie. I didn't think it would move me as much as it did.
Yeah, that's a good one. My number 5 is a movie that just came out recently. It is from director Robert Eggers. It is Nosferatu. I love the 1922 original. Over the month of October, I watched 31 vampire movies, including every version of Nosferatu, the vampire, the Klaus Kinski one. Robert Eggers is one of our great filmmakers, and I just love his work with shadows and the reactions of people in this film. Great casting. Lily Rose Depp, an actress who I haven't had a lot of thoughts about in her young career. Perfect casting in this movie. And it just, Robert Eggers made this his movie. And my only issue is I wanted Count Orlok, who's played by Bill Skarsgård, to be a little more terrifying than he was in this movie. But Willem Dafoe is incredible in an over-the-top role. I really enjoyed this film quite a bit. Not for you.
No. My daughter tried to drag me to this, and I said no.
A film that I really, really enjoyed. It was a great one. So that's my number 5.
Okay.
Your number 4.
My number 4 is My Old Ass.
Oh.
No, it's not about mine. That would make the worst of list. I mean, every year it seems there's a small independent film that really wins me over. I mean, can you say Coda?
Yeah, right.
This film is 2024's Coda, and it's about Elliot, played by Maisie Stella. Remember that name. She plays an 18-year-old girl who encounters her 39-year-old self, played by Aubrey Plaza, after drinking mushroom tea during a camping trip with her friends. She learns some things about herself, her family, and her life. You would think with that plot this would end up being like a Freaky Friday. Mm-hmm. It's not.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of that. It's funny, it's touching. I shed a few tears at times. I thought Aubrey Plaza was just fantastic. Yeah. Even though you really only see her at the beginning of the film and at the end of the film, and then there's a big chunk without her in the middle. But Maisie Stella is
She's
fantastic.
Great. Yeah.
And you talked about the actress that was in Good One. I didn't know until just recently that Maisie Stella was in the TV series Nashville.
Oh, okay.
And I watched that show. and I didn't recognize her as I was watching this movie.
That's great.
But I think it's on Prime now, and you need to check it out.
Yeah, it's a good one. My number 4 is a film called La Chimera. Stars Josh O'Connor as a man named Arthur, who's a recently paroled English archaeologist who reconnects with his old merry band of grave robbers who loot tombs and sell treasures, mostly to the rich elite in the area. And it gets a bit surreal at times as Arthur is processing trauma and life choices. There's some real surreal moments in here, but these characters in this movie are so much fun. He's also dating a new girl who has questions when he takes her grave robbing on one of their early dates. He's got a unique set of skills where he's able to, uses a divining rod to find treasure buried in tombs, unexplained. But Josh O'Connor is really magical here. His kind of rumpled appearance and shy charm really jumps off the screen. He made 2 movies this year, Challengers being the other one. I found this to be a much better movie, in my opinion, even though Challengers is the one that everyone talks about. I thought he was great, and it was his best film of the year. So
it's on my list.
Yikes.
I want to see it.
There you go. All right, top 3. What do we have?
Number 3, We Live in Time, and this is my tearjerker of the year. My daughter and I saw this. We were both weepy messes throughout the film. It follows the relationship of a couple played by Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh over the course of a decade, and the dramatic turn that their relationship takes when something tragic happens to one of them. It's not your typical tearjerker. It doesn't get overly melodramatic and cliched. It doesn't use a sledgehammer to try to pound it home. And I think one of the reasons why that is because of Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh. They made this story very real. They were great together. Their chemistry was real. You really believed that they were a couple. I don't know if anybody else could have pulled this off. They did. And I thought Pugh was fantastic. She's one of my favorite actors. I think she should get an Oscar nomination for this. She won't. But I really love this movie.
I was wiping tears in the theater when I saw this movie.
Oh, we were too, yeah.
My number 3 is a film called His Three Daughters. Stars Carrie Coon, Natasha Lyonne, and Elizabeth Olsen, about 3 estranged sisters who share a father and come together in his New York City apartment as he lies dying in his bed. And they're stuck in close quarters and have to deal with their fractured relationship. And they all have different relationships with their father. They're all very different women. And it's 3 great leads who had their own moments of compassion and selfishness and hurt and vulnerability and reconciliations as their father lies dying. And I was blown away by the 3 performances in this movie and absolutely loved it. So his 3 Daughters is my number 3.
I think that's on Netflix.
I believe it is, yes.
Yeah,
You're right.
and I want to see that.
You're number 2, sir.
All right, this is one that you and I saw together, Conclave.
Yes.
The political thriller about a papal conclave to elect the next pope. Now, there's 2 things that struck me about this film. Number 1, it's rated PG.
Crazy.
When was the last time you saw a PG-rated adult drama that didn't need to have cursing, sex, or violence in it, and it works?
Yeah.
And second, I love that this film was carried on the shoulders of the great older actors who normally are in supporting roles. Ralph Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow, Isabella Rossellini.
This is one of those adult movies you were talking about.
Yeah, they're all great. Fiennes and Rossellini need to be nominated for Oscars. I mean, yeah, it does get a little campy at times. And yeah, I'm still thinking about the ending.
Yeah.
Haven't made my mind up about that.
Sure.
It could have easily been an over-the-top drama that's full of itself, but it's not. And it's going to be nominated for Best Picture. I don't think it's going to win, but it does deserve a nomination.
I rewatched this again the other day now that it's streaming. Really enjoyable.
I think it's on Peacock.
I believe so, yeah. Good movie. My number 2 movie is a film from director Sean Baker, who I really love. It's a film called Honora.
Yeah.
It stars Mikey Madison as Honora, or Annie as she goes in this movie. It's a great dark comedy, especially the second half, but Baker really excels at telling stories about people on the margins. He did with the Florida Project or Tangerine. And Annie's this young stripper who gets her dream life when a young, coked-out son of a Russian billionaire shows up looking for companionship. And Ivan, this Russian billionaire, brings frenetic energy, and she loves the ride, but wants more stability in life. And she's never had anything. And this movie takes a wild turn. Romance begets craziness, and it culminates in this beautiful ending. And it's just a rich, flavorful film. And Mikey Madison gave what is my favorite performance of the year in this movie as Honora. And I think she should get nominated and win awards, but I don't think she will.
I've heard so many great things about this. It's at the top of my list to see this. I know Sean Baker's done some good stuff too.
It's great.
So.
All right, your number 1 movie of the year.
All right, well, Conclave was at the top of the list, but then this movie came along and dethroned it. It's A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan movie, portraying Dylan through his earliest success as a folk artist to the big controversy over his use of electric instruments at the 1965 Newport Folk Festival. Directed by James Mangold, who directed one of my all-time favorite movies, Walk the Line, back in 2005. And in Walk the Line, he transformed Joaquin Phoenix into Johnny Cash into such a way that I really believed that Joaquin Phoenix was Johnny Cash. And in this movie, he transforms Timothée Chalamet into Bob Dylan. Now, when I first heard that Chalamet was going to play Dylan, I thought, you got to be kidding me. But he had me believing that Chalamet was Bob Dylan. And the supporting performances, Edward Norton as Pete Seeger, Elle Fanning as Sylvie Russo, Dylan's girlfriend at the time, and especially Monica Barbaro as Joan Baez. Loved her performance. She looks like Baez. She sang like her mannerisms were like her. All the actors, Chalamet, Seeger, and Barbaro, played their own instruments.
Yeah,
they
sang. Great.
They sang live, I believe, during the filming.
Yep.
Chalamet learned how to play guitar.
He was really, really good.
And harmonica. And I think the same with the guy that played Johnny Cash, Boyd Holbrook.
I struggled with Boyd Holbrook's
Did you?
Johnny Cash.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the one thing that stood out to me was I didn't buy him as Johnny Cash.
Okay. I mean, I'm a Dylan fan. I'm not a huge Dylan fan, but and to take on such an iconic and massive figure like Dylan it's a tough task. But I think Mangold nailed it.
Yeah,
he really did. It's playing in theaters now. Even if you're not a Dylan fan, go see it.
My number 1 is a movie that I saw towards the beginning of the year, and it just held this top spot. It is Dune Part 2, Denis Villeneuve's sequel to his amazing Dune, which won 6 Academy Awards a couple years ago. Gorgeous cinematography, epic sci-fi space opera. That's my genre right there. Timothée Chalamet at the number 1 spot for me as well. I just love it. He and Zendaya are great. Austin Butler, Florence Pugh. I mean, this incredible cast. but it's just beautiful. 2 hours and 46 minutes never drags for a minute
it
for me.
doesn't.
I've watched this 3 times this year. Javier Bardem, every time he exclaims, Lisan El Gaib, I'm like, yeah, I'm in. I love it. I love Javier Bardem in this role. And just the ascension of the Paul Atreides story as he unites the Fremen and maneuvers the political machinations of this world against the Harkonnen. Man, I love this movie so much. It's beautiful to me. So that is my number 1. I can't wait for the final chapter of this trilogy. I'm sure that's going to be great too. Now, we do have a couple of minutes. We have some honorable mentions.
Sure.
You want to run some honorable mentions out there?
Yeah, I'll give you my list. One you just mentioned, Dune Part 2. I did like it, much better than the first one. The first one
Yes.
I kind of confused me, but I did like Dune Part 2, and I am looking forward to the next one. When is that coming out?
Good question. In the world that we're in right now, it could be 5 years. Who knows? I think they're still writing it.
All right, well, I got to stay healthy until then.
Yep.
Thelma, June Squibb, and she was in her early 90s when she filmed this. She goes out to get back the money that got swindled from her.
Yeah.
Blitz, which is one of 2 films in 2024 starring the very underrated Saoirse Ronan.
Movie.
This one I just saw recently called Dee Dee. It's a very sweet coming-of-age story. And then Juror Number 2, which really was under the radar, and now it's getting some word of mouth. Great courtroom drama from Clint Eastwood.
I love a courtroom drama.
He was still making movies. And then the documentary Super/Man, the Christopher Reeve story.
Yes.
Have a box of Kleenex nearby
Dude,
when you see this.
Oh, the whole Robin Williams segment, I
Yes.
was wrecked.
Wow.
Yeah. Those are all great. My honorable mentions, I have Evil Does Not Exist, a great film. Late Night with the Devil, a movie that caught me off guard but really hit my love of the Johnny Carson era talk shows. Only What If the Devil shows up on one of those. Conclave, which you'd mentioned. The 4:30 movie, Kevin Smith's new movie. I have not been a fan of Kevin Smith movies in about 20 years, and this one really, really worked for me. Totem, a movie that I really enjoyed. And then you mentioned We Live in Time, would be my number 11 movie of the year. Man, I love that flick. So those are my honorable mentions as well. I took the time to rank all 179 movies that I saw this year. So if you follow our social media, I will be posting my full rankings on our social media for you to look at and debate how dumb I was about these. But those will be up shortly afterwards. There's still some movies that I want to see. September 5, The Brutalist, Nickel Boys, Queer. These are movies that I really want to check out.
Yeah, I think Nickel Boys is playing now in a theater somewhere as we speak here in the Madison area. Brutalist, I think will be coming out soon.
Yeah.
I thought September 5th was coming out now. Apparently that's coming out soon.
We've got to chase these things down.
There's one with the Pamela Anderson movie, The Last Showgirl.
That's very good.
Which I do want to see. I'm trying to convince my wife to go see that. So yeah, it's always disappointing because you hear about these great movies and they're getting all these all this acclaim, and then all of a sudden they only show it in New York and Los Angeles just to get on the Oscar ballot.
And then you have to wait
until
the end of
January. Several weeks until you can actually see it.
Yeah.
Can I just say one that I'm surprised you didn't put in there?
What's that?
The Substance.
The Substance, I thought the first 3/4 of the movie was great. The last 30 minutes of the movie made it drop a full star in my ratings. Great performances, a great 3/4 of a movie, and a really bad final 30 minutes that it's not in my top 20.
Yeah. I'm not going to say
not
it,
for
but
you.
I was surprised you didn't.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was aiming that way, and then the trajectory fell for me. I feel like I'm on the outside looking in as far as thoughts on that. But before we leave, we want to thank our sponsor, though. They're still around, the Palace here in Sun Prairie, Marcus Theaters, Palace Cinema. Thank you for always being so consistent in sponsoring this show. We do appreciate that. We love being able to go sit in a dream lounger and watch these movies. We just need more of them. We need more movies. Sir, thank you for doing this again with me.
Okay.
It's been far too long.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but are we going to do an Oscar show?
We might. The Oscars, things are
Well,
things
if
are up
there
in the
is an
air.
Oscars, we'll see.
Things are up in the air about win nominations
Yeah.
and possible show, but I think that we should do some Oscars discussion at some point. This is going to lead to us bringing the show back full time, isn't it? I see
I don't
where you're
know.
pushing. See where you're leading
I
us
don't know.
down the path. But it's just great being back. It's been 8 months since this show did anything, and it's great. Glad the staff here at the Media Center were able to make this happen. I want to thank our guy John Schmidt, who ably did this show with us. We really appreciate it, and everyone involved here at the Sun Prairie Media Center. So thanks for checking us out, and stay tuned. There may be more reviews in the future, but until that time comes, I'm Jamison.
And I'm Steve.
Have a great one.